Welcome to Very Honored Frater BT's Esoterinerd podcast, episode 89, in which Gnosis the Aquarian and I interview Silence the Aquarian, also known as Dr. Robert Strong. But first,
Aleph, Bet, Bet, Gimel, Daled, Hey.
This is the segment in which I recite the Book of Tokens by Very Honored Frater P. Paul Foster Case. The Meditation on the Letter Hey. In whatsoever object thou perceivest, know me as the essence, as the idea, as the interior nature. Because of this, the wise come easily to me by many paths. Yet in truth, these different roads are but a single way. If thou canst penetrate into the nature of the simplest thing, there shalt thou find me. This is the key to the mystery of the sacred letters. Fix thy mind on the object set before thee by any letter, and hold thy thought to meditation thereon. Then shall the inner nature of that object be made known to thee, and by this means shalt thou draw nigh to some aspect of my being. Consider then the secret meaning of the letter Hey, for even as I am the essence and idea and interior nature of every ox, of every house, of every camel, and of every door, so am I also the essence and idea and interior nature of every window. If thou set thy mind to meditate upon the interior nature of a window, thou shalt readily perceive that every window hath somewhat the nature of a door, inasmuch as it is an opening in the wall of a house. The house is Keter, the crown of primal will, and the door is Binah, the gate of understanding. And as the thought of the door is from the building of the house, so is the thought of the window from the fashioning of the door. Hence, those instructed in the secret wisdom declare that Chesed, the path of beneficence, proceedeth from Binah, the gate of understanding, even as the idea of the window proceedeth from the idea of the door. For I am merciful, because mine understanding compasseth the secret nature of all things. My loving kindness is the fruit of my discrimination. Again, a window is set in the wall of a house, even as the eye is set in the head, that they who dwell within may look abroad to see what passeth without. Hence it is written in the Sefer Yetzirah that the letter Hey correspondeth unto the faculty of sight. This referreth to my power of vision, which is not as thine, since nothing escapeth it, and all things appear unto it in their true aspect. It is written, The eyes of the Lord are in every place, beholding the evil and the good. And because I, the dweller in the house of the supernal will, see all things as they really are, my vision hath no taint of false judgment. Seen, I understand, and because nothing is hid from me, therefore I am merciful. But the path of my mercy is a way concealed from the profane, because they have not attained unto my perfect vision. Easier to follow is the flight of an eagle, for my way soareth high above the comprehension of the mind of man. As it is written, Lo, he goeth by me, and I see him not. He passeth on also, and I perceive him not. Yet is the secret of that way hidden in thy bosom, O Israel. For my way is the way of the Word, and the Word is hidden in thy heart. For this is the Word creative, which calleth all things into being. Here is a mystery, for the letter He concealeth the Word, and the Word is as truly a vision as it is a voice. With me there is no difference between speech and sight. In very truth I utter myself by seeing. Unto the uninstructed, the coming forth of the creative word is as a mist and a vapor. For existence is as a veil of concealment, which hideth my true nature from their eyes. Hidden and imperceptible is the essence of my being, which sages call concealed with all concealments. By day, when thy senses busy themselves with their appropriate objects, if thou seest me at all, shall I be unto thee even as to thy forefathers, naught but a pillar of cloud, vague and uncertain, going before thee. But at night, when thou hast withdrawn thy senses into themselves, and thy mind is no longer swept away by the multiplicity of objects, thou shalt perceive me more clearly as a pillar of living fire. Behold, it shall be well with thee if thou canst understand this saying, and if thou knowest what is day and what is night. None hath seen me face to face, for I am the forerunner of all. Thus, O Israel, am I ever before thee on the way of life. And to all mankind it is said, even to Moshe, Thou shalt see my back parts, but my face shall not be seen. No matter how far thou goest, I have already passed that way. Thou shalt never see me as I am, but thou mayest know me in what I have done. The wise discover me in my works. No man perceiveth me as father, until as mother I have brought forth creatures. The following of He after Dalet in the alphabet is a sign and symbol of this truth. Even as Ima, the mother, concealeth the Yod of Av, the father, so do He, though the wise call it the mother wherewith creation took place, conceal that same paternal Yod, since He, in its plenitude, is the number 10. Therefore, the letter He belongeth to my paternal mercy, since in the number 4, which appertaineth unto Chesed, mercy is the number 10 concealed, even as it is hidden in the word window. And in that exhaustless mercy lie hid the riches of my kingdom. For the Decad is the kingdom, and the Decad is hidden in Chesed. Regard me, therefore, as the paternal Yod, which imparteth life to the whole creation, not made with hands, but begotten in this universe, of which thou art at once a part and the whole. Of mine own substance are all things made. and I give myself freely to everyone. They know me truly, who see that it is my nature to bring forth and to originate. This whole universe is an expression of my primal will to yield fruit. Even as in Genesis thou mayest read that light was the first creation, so hath it been known since the beginning by the wise. They worship me with wisdom, who turn their faces toward the east. For the shining of the dawn is a type of all my works. This whole creation is the irradiation of that limitless light which I am, and never shall mere man attain to the source of that divine illumination. None may grasp me, and to those who seek to capture me in the net of thought, I am the eternal fugitive. Yet though I elude pursuit, I am the source and support even of the pursuers, and in truth the food of all beings. The bread thou eatest is my body, the wine thou drinkest is my blood. For because creation took place with the letter He, that letter is the ground of all created existence, the stuff from which every form is built, the supply for every need. All this am I. Therefore, though none may capture me in the net of thought, he shall speak truly who say, laying his hand on anything soever, whether men prize it or scorn it as of no worth. Dost ask me to show thee the Lord? Verily in this shalt thou find him, if thou hast eyes to see. Today, new Aquarians, Gnosis the Aquarian, and of course myself, Pymander the Aquarian, sat down and interviewed Silence the Aquarian, or Dr. Robby Strong, on the subject of Gnosis and Gnosticism.
In the name of the Lord of the universe, who works in silence, and whom naught but silence can express.
Let's get to that interview, shall we?
I forget that.
Yeah, my day for Wednesday, baby.
Welcome to the Esoterinerd podcast, my brethren in the new Aquarian brotherhood that we've just made up. No, this is Silence the Aquarian. Here
Silence
talking.
the Aquarian,
Yeah.
aka Dr. Robert.
So we got silent. So Gnosis. Gnosis is
Yes.
new. Gnosis Aquarian,
Also a second generation.
given by Jin. The name was given by Jin, and so the resident expert in Gnosis, in Gnosticism, there's a difference, of course, between Gnostic and
Right.
Gnosis, though the words are connected. One is more of a general thing, and one is more of a specific thing. Would you care to elaborate?
Sure. A lot of this kind of overlaps with my own personal experience, and that's why I got into it in the first place. I grew up in a very fundamentalist church in the South. My dad was a pastor. And as I kind of begin to differentiate from that culture and try to figure out the whole God thing and what it meant to me, I began to discover the books that were left out of the canon.
Right.
And
So we're talking about the Council of Nicaea,
right.
325 AD, when Constantine, whose mother was very devoutly Christian, got all the bishops, the appointed bishops together. I believe it was all of them, right? Maybe there were some left out, the ones we now call Gnostic, right?
I was telling our friend Gnosis Aquarian that there was kind of this this tension that had been building since the very early stages of the church,
Right.
where there was a Jerusalem church, that largely followed James
Mhm.
and John, and a lot of them saw James, the brother of Jesus, as a natural successor of the church.
Right.
And they didn't call themselves Christians or church; they were Essenes.
Mm.
They were part of the same Essene order that Jesus and John the Baptist were a part of.
Now, what's the source on this? Because a lot of like if you when you started talking like this at the Orthodox Church the other day, the guy was just like,
This
no,
is-
no, you must leave.
This is straight from the Dead Sea Scrolls.
Okay.
There's so much detailed overlap in several of the books found in the Dead Sea Scrolls out in the desert.
So
And this is the
Qumran-
same region that Jesus talked about going to the backside of the desert for his training with his cousin John the Baptist. A lot of the John the Baptist's habits and rituals described in the Bible
Man, I have the
have
Dead
no
Sea Scrolls.
context
I should have read them.
outside of the Dead Sea Scrolls.
Yeah.
And when the Dead Sea Scrolls came to light and people began to interpret them into English,
Yeah.
the church didn't know what to do with it. The church really tried to sit on it for a really long time.
Right.
Because they want to think that Jesus just arrived in a vacuum. He just
Right.
came from heaven without any cultural context at all.
Yeah.
Without appreciating the cultural giveness.
Yeah, so it's
the
like
embeddedness
blasphemy
of
to
it.
say that he
Yeah.
was educated or something.
Right,
Like
ironically
yeah.
enough.
Or that he, since he grew up in Alexandria, that he might have been a little bit cosmopolitan.
Right.
You know, like he might have had a little savvy.
And-
Maybe when he came back and he was talking to the rabbis, maybe he would have had a little bit of a different perspective than someone who was born and raised in Jerusalem and became a rabbi, and maybe would have blown their mind. Maybe without being some like special person.
Right.
It might have been a regular guy, who was an impressive 12-year-old.
There was a direct Alexandrian connection, though, because the Essenes had satellite branches that lived on communes and compounds on a lake not far from Alexandria. And they were called therapeutae in the Alexandrian Greek, which is where we get our word therapist from.
Oh.
They were into various forms of shamanistic healing, using stones, astrology, kind of a body calendar similar to what the alchemists used. And they use a lot of that in the Essene texts as well. When you read the Manual of Disciplines and some of those books in the Dead Sea Scrolls. But after Jesus left, you had the Church of James and John the Baptist, where they saw themselves as basically the urban satellite of the wilderness compound. Like the people in the wilderness, those were the monks, the hardcore monks living in the hills.
Right.
But they were basically sending missionaries into the city.
Right.
And those were the sort of lay ministers that were allowed to marry. The rules were a little bit different. And they were creating a movement that was radically anarchistic, radically anti-authoritarian. And they contrasted themselves with the temple establishment of the time. And you see that all throughout the Dead Sea Scrolls. In fact, the Dead Sea Scrolls talk about a teacher of righteousness who will be killed. And it basically, everything they talk about this teacher of righteousness lines up so much with Jesus, although there is some historical indication that there might have been an actual other person that married
Right.
Jesus just a couple hundred years before. But some people say they were one and the same. But so
Well,
they were
it's
very
like-
anti-authoritarian, and I was telling Gnosis that at some point, members of the temple establishment wanted to kind of rein them back in, and you also had this whole other Greek segment that wanted to do something different. Basically, when the councils, though, when Constantine gave the thumbs up to Christianity, the people that were kind of power hungry, that really liked authoritarian structure, they tried to take which books work best within an authoritarian structure,
Right.
and try to circle the wagons and shoulder everyone else out as heretics.
Yeah.
And that was basically the part that was left out of Christianity. And the reason I'm so excited to kind of discover the way all this pieces together
Right.
is because I just had this brain explosion when I realized that's exactly what's happened to Christianity in America. The Christians in the red states have basically taken the parts of the gospel that correlate with late stage capitalism, American empire, and left out everything else.
Right.
And they've ended up electing this Messiah that is pretty much the exact opposite of everything that Jesus himself stood for.
Right.
And because my parents are so deep into that, and so many people from back home are deep into that, it's not just a cultural curiosity for me, it's a deeply personal thing.
Yeah.
Like you can imagine if your family was held hostage by this malevolent force, you would want
Right.
to do something to deliver them.
Yeah.
And maybe in some weird way, that's what my book's about.
Oh, wow.
My book's
Yeah.
about trying to bring the real Jesus back into Christianity that
Yeah.
my family's involved with.
Wow.
So you talk about the anti-authoritarian parts being left out, but would you consider any parts put in to dilute an anti-authoritarian message? Like, it's not cliche, but you hear very often, give unto Caesar what is Caesar's, is a famous...
That was St. Paul? Or was that Jesus?
That was Jesus.
That was Jesus. Okay.
They were asking, they were kind of trying to bait him because they knew that the Essenes were very anti-authoritarian, and the Essenes had a beef against the temple establishment because they felt the temple establishment was too beholden to Rome.
Right.
So they're like, so do you guys pay taxes or what? What do you think about money? And Jesus basically just gave them a riddle back.
Right.
This has a picture of Caesar on it. Give to Caesar what's Caesar and to God's what is God's. They had a very communitarian lifestyle. They had a common purse. When you joined the Essenes, you basically gave everything you owned
Right.
to the community. Like when Jesus told the potential disciple, and the interesting thing is, after learning all this, so much about the Gospels in the traditional Bible makes so much more sense. Like when Jesus told the disciple, he said, "What can I do to follow you?" They said, "Give up everything you own." He said that to the rich young ruler who wanted to be one of them, and the guy's just like, okay, you know.
He left.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that was literal.
That was the one about and then he said it's easier for the camel to enter through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to enter the kingdom of heaven.
Oh my God, you have no idea how many times I've quoted that verse to the folks back home, because I'm still friends on Facebook with so many people.
Yeah.
See, guys, I was actually training to be a conservative minister at one point myself. I don't know if I've ever told you this, but I was a student at Central Bible College, Springfield, Missouri, right in the buckle of the Bible Belt. My dad being an Assemblies of God minister, that's like the Assemblies of God Ministerial College. It was just kind of a given. That's where you're going to go to college, son. So I went there for a few years, and it was actually there when I started sorting some of this out.
Right.
You know, I had some questions about the Bible, and they're like, hey, you know, if you have questions about the Bible, just pray about it, and the Holy Spirit will reveal it to you. And read about it. The Holy Spirit revealed to me something very different than what they were teaching.
Yeah. Well, and I went through the Orthodox branch of the Catholic Church, and I went through to get chrismated in. So I went through the training, and I asked some questions, and there were certain, I was in a cult anyway, so I was like willing to swallow a certain amount of bullshit because it was kind of like part of my hazing process to become a bona fide Catholic or something, and so. So yeah, but I would ask them similar questions, and like what about the Gnostics, and then my priest would explain that, that there were all kinds of people. Some people were saying Jesus was a giant. Some people were saying he was a human. Some people were saying like it was that and some people were just profaning his name. And
Are you
so
talking
like
about
the people
in the Golden Dawn?
No, this is what the Orthodox Church says.
Oh, okay.
That Constantine got all the bishops who were rightly appointed by the Holy Spirit to into one room, and then since they were all together, the Holy Spirit was really moving that day, and they came up with the Nicene creed to clarify the true doctrine, which we all believe, right? You must believe this, right? Because you all say it every Sunday, right? And you have to say you believe it in order to be let into the church, right? Unless you're born into it. But anyway. We believe in one God, Father, Almighty, Maker of heaven and earth. God from God, light from light, true God from true God, Maker of heaven and earth. You know the one.
There's a lot of beautiful stuff, even in Orthodox Christianity.
Yeah.
That
it's beautiful.
That
like you said,
I read
it's
differently
absolutely
after studying Gnosticism. It
Yeah.
doesn't turn me away from Christianity. It just makes me want to go,
More
guys,
interested.
there is so much
Yeah,
more
but they're
to
not
this.
interested. Yeah, they want.
It's beautiful. You got to see the deeper meaning there.
Yeah, they want nothing to do with that. Because then they take anything that doesn't fit with that. Like there's this story where Jesus in the Gospel of Nicodemus breaks through the iron gates of hell like they were glass, or Hades, like they were glass, and then sets all the souls free. And then Hades is pissed off, so it gets hot there. I mean, I can see why they left this one out of the Bible. But my point is, there were other Gospels, and some of them were good. The Thunder, the Perfect Mind, I can see why they. I mean, from when you're trying to put an organization together, you don't want to have part of your doctrine be fuck organizations. These people are stupid.
Thunder, the Perfect Mind. That's one of the Nag Hammadi texts. Right?
Yeah.
I was telling Gnosis about the big finds that they discovered right around the same time. The Nag Hammadi text from Egypt. And the Dead Sea Scrolls, and just the parallels of those two finds. And ironically enough, they were discovered right around the same time.
Yeah.
And Carl Jung, of all people, ended up sitting on some of the codices that the Catholic Church was trying to confiscate.
Oh wow!
And that's
What do you mean
interesting
sitting on?
Like
hiding
hanging onto.
Oh,
hanging
wow.
onto, yeah, because they really were working hard to keep us from coming to light.
So the Gnostics after, so the people that were declared by the Constantinian Church, you are heretics. Like I know that you were describing initiations that the Gnostics would go through. The
Yeah.
Valentinian. When was that? Like what?
The initiations go back to a group of pre-Christian Gnostics called Sethians. And the Essenes used a lot of the Sethian texts.
Mhm.
Like there are Sethian books from the Dead Sea Scrolls, where they saw themselves as a spiritual lineage of the child of Adam, Seth. Cain and Abel, those were the children of duality.
Right.
And when you ate from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil,
You were either
went from
dead
eating-
or a killer.
yes,
Yeah.
exactly. You were either the victim or the killer.
Yeah.
It's eat or be eaten
Yeah.
in that world, which is the essence of capitalism, right?
Right.
But so you go from unity consciousness to polarity. But when all the shit went down with Cain and Abel, they had another son, Seth. They saw themselves coming from lineage from Seth through Enoch, and Melchizedek they saw as this
Melchizedek.
as an archangel.
Yeah.
And he was, some of the Sethians saw him as, saw Christ as a reincarnation of Melchizedek.
Mm.
Some saw him as a reincarnation of Enoch, some Elijah. And it
Yeah,
says that
yeah.
explicitly even in the Orthodox version
Yeah.
of the Bible. Some people think you're Elijah.
And it means righteous king, but Zadi also means Jupiter. So it's Jupiter king.
And they had an astrological thing,
Mhm.
the Essenes did. And that's something that the Orthodox Church would really crap their pants about, because they think anything related to astrology is quote
Well,
unquote demonic.
the priests don't mind studying this stuff amongst themselves, but when the congregation comes up and says, "Oh, I heard something about this," they're like, "Nah, they're there," I don't know. They don't encourage extracurricular study, but what ended up happening was, our priest would go read the stuff and get back, and then we kept going to church, so he was researching what we were into, and so he started quoting the Sefer Yetzirah during the homily and stuff. So it was pretty cool.
When I first met you, and you were kind of introducing me to some of the Golden Dawn rituals,
Mhm.
it really kind of blew my mind that 100 years ago, they had some of these rituals passed down word of mouth, I guess, from the Rosicrucians and the Masons.
Right.
Who got them from the Sufis, I guess, which the Sufis got a lot of their stuff from the Essenes. They were
Right.
basically the Essenes that were forced to convert to Islam.
Mm.
And they're like, oh, sure, we'll go along with it, whatever.
Oh, interesting.
But the Sethians, the Sethians had rituals that were very similar to the Mithraic rituals and some of the rituals of Bacchus and the other Greek mystery religions. There were these almost like universal rituals that involved. One was a cave ritual that often happened on winter solstice.
Mhm.
And the Mithraists, they actually built underground chambers. A lot of the other rural movements, like the Essenes and the Pythagoreans,
Mhm.
they used actual caves. So you would enter a cave during the winter solstice, and you'd stay there for 3 days and come out facing the sun. While you were there, you would go through a ritual baptism where you'd be stripped, bathed, and re-robed in a white garment. So there was the cave ritual where you left for 3 days, the baptism. Then there was a stargazing ritual, which was the last ritual. And on the next night, you were laying in the grass, and the father of the group would come and anoint your head and give you the sacred sacrament, which we have all indication. And in fact, one of the foremost scholars of the Dead Sea Scrolls wrote an entire series of books about the sacred mushroom as it related to Christian and pre-Christian mystical groups. But he got really panned unjustly. In fact, they're starting to vindicate some of his research now. But you would be basically dosed with a psychedelic substance, and you would go through a star journey. And the way they used astrology, they had kind of a Ptolemaic calendar. and they believed archangels were in charge of each realm. If you could picture centrifugal rings going up the dome of heaven, and they didn't see they saw the gods of these places not necessarily as being benevolent creatures, and that was actually split within the Gnostics themselves. Some Gnostics had the Hermetics had a very parallel set of rituals, but they didn't necessarily see the gods as good or bad.
Right.
They saw them as friends. There was a whole bunch of Gnostics that were very pessimistic, and they saw the archons as creating this constraining prison of a reality. They built this fallible flesh.
You can kind
in
of
this
understand,
dog-eat-dog
like,
world.
like I remember my old teacher Gordon, you know, and he was an older guy, and he was, you know, had body issues, and I'd be like, life is a gift, and he'd be like, yeah, fucking keep the receipt. You know, that's actually kind
Right.
of name, but you
Yeah.
know, but he was like, yeah, you
It's true for a lot of
youngsters
people.
say that, you know, but like, you know, just wait, you know, like one day you'll be like, oh, fucking, can I end this already? You know, like it gets old, you know. I mean, like it gets, and so I mean, it's like almost like his philosophy on life. And my philosophy on life is like mirrored in these two different kinds of Gnosticism.
Right.
It's like maybe one was more popular with the more healthy youngsters who were getting laid. You
It's
know,
likely.
The other was more popular with people who were watching the other ones get laid. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you know, when I grew up, I was a beta male. You know,
yeah.
I mean, I got lucky in life. I
Yeah.
love my life now, but I was a struggling beta male, and I write a lot about my own personal journeys in this book, which is like it's called Psilocybin Sundays. Confessions of a Gonzo Theologian.
Right.
But it has a lot of my personal journey overlaid with this kind of cultural study of Christianity in America and down through history, and how Gnosticism has been this kind of vein that has been used or left out. But but there was a point where I was really struggling with suicide, and one of the chapters in the book, I'm standing on this bridge going over the Mississippi River, right where it dumps into the Ohio River, and I'm on my way back to college from my family's house, and I'm standing there thinking about Jeff Buckley and how he just drowned in the Mississippi River, and thinking, I think this is the way I want to go. And a large part of it was because I had lived my life so eyes wide open to the pain and suffering around me. It felt like I had that Gnostic view of the world, that it's eat or be eaten.
Right.
It's steal or starve. And it just felt like the natural order was so built to fail.
Right.
I just didn't want to be a part of it anymore.
Yeah.
And so philosophically and personally, I
I
had reasons
see.
for being on that bridge.
Maybe one leads to the other, or can.
But
Like you can start off kind of more cynical and eventually come around to a little bit. You know, like I used to hate Los Angeles, for instance, and then over time I started to learn to love it a little bit. You know, I mean, I like taking a break from it, but like,
well,
you know, I don't
I'd
hate
always
it
been
like I
told.
used to when I
I'd
was a
always
kid.
been told God is all loving and all knowing.
Yeah.
And even as a kid, how can God be all knowing and all loving and allow good things to happen to bad people and all
Right.
these things? You
Yeah.
know? How come the evil thrive and the good, you know, struggle?
Yeah.
And
Well, the description that I would, if a theoricist asked me that, I would explain that when the veils of negative existence, you know about this?
No.
Okay, so before the beginning, before Genesis, according to the Zohar, more or less, there was the veils of negative existence where there was Ein, there is no, nothing, no thing. And then since there's no thing, there's no limits, so Ein Sof is no limit. And then Ein Sof Or, since there's no limit to the light. And so there's light everywhere. And so, but since there was no limit to the light, then that included all things, including contradictions. And so things that were contrary to the nature of the light all ended up concentrated in one little ball in the middle. And God didn't know what to do with it. And he shot a beam of himself into it, and there were 10 containers already there present, and they shattered from the light because they didn't know how to give, they only knew how to receive. And so then what lit up there was Adam. And so it's Adam's job to fucking figure the thing out. And, you know.
It's our job, yeah.
Yeah.
And that was me standing on the bridge. First of all, do I want to keep doing this or not?
Yeah.
And for a variety of reasons, mainly because I thought of my sister. And I just...
Oh, yeah.
She cries...
That's what keeps me...
My sister's mentally disabled. My sister's mentally disabled.
Mm.
And when I would leave for college, I'd think about her big brown eyes and how they would just well with tears. And I'd think, God, if she cries like this when I leave to go back to college, I can imagine what she would...
Oh.
Her tears if
She'd never stop
I
crying.
died. So I was like, no, I don't care what life throws at me. I'm going to keep going.
Yeah.
But it's interesting when I walk back off that bridge. And I walked into this McDonald's. I was down at the end, you know, and I ordered a cup of coffee and a cheeseburger. It was like the best cheeseburger I'd ever had, and the best cup of coffee, because all of a sudden I was crashing the party.
Yeah.
You know, in a parallel universe, I'm drowning right now.
Oh, right.
But here I am. I'm eating this cheeseburger. Holy fuck, this is good.
Yeah.
And so things went from being this very depressed, muted reality to being almost hyper real.
Oh, you had to go through it to come out the other side.
Right. And a lot of the Gnostic rituals involved confronting your own death.
Yeah.
And it's interesting, you told me that one of the Golden Dawn rituals, you were actually kind of locked in a chamber for 3 days. Very similar to
that wasn't
the original Gnostics,
that wasn't
right?
traditional Golden Dawn, but
Okay.
the particular group I came from was a little bit freaky.
But that's true to form, though.
Yeah.
That's what the higher Gnostics did.
Right.
I mean, that's pretty hardcore, but it's true to form historically.
Yeah.
But the Sethians, going back to the early Gnostics, they had this view that the creator god was a dick.
Yeah.
They called
the
him
demiurge.
Yes,
right?
the demiurge.
Yeah.
They had several names for him. They called him Yaldabaoth, which is Lord of Hosts.
Mm.
But when they say Lord of Hosts, they don't mean like rah 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 the good angels. They mean the bad angels.
What's the name?
Yaldabaoth
Oh,
or
okay.
Yaldabaoth. They also called him Samael, which means the blind.
Mm.
The basically the blind god. But so when they went through their ascension ritual, through their initiation, and they were laying in the grass looking at the celestial domes, they had to confront the god form within each of those domes. And the first one was Yaldabaoth.
Mm.
And they had special phrases and words that they would use that in modern American terms were basically, I know who you are, buddy. You're not fooling anybody. I'm a child of the Most High God that's above you. You're but a reflection of Him. Let me through. And so they'd go and confront each God form at each planetary stage.
Yeah.
Some of them had that kind of like, sort of like, I know you, buddy. Fuck off. Let me through. But some of the Gnostics, they've integrated it a little bit more.
Right.
And I'm actually starting to
A
get
little
there.
more respectful.
Well, I'm starting to get back to that in my
Yeah.
own spiritual life.
Yeah.
Because I've been so, like, I've got to tell everybody that Yaldabaoth is the false god and they're worshiping the wrong god.
Right.
But some of the more optimistic ones, they had this way of integrating each of the god forms. And instead of you being evil, it's like, you're the only god form you could be at this level.
Mm.
Almost like the developmental stages of a child. We don't expect a child to be able to do calculus. We don't expect a child to be able to engage in high-level abstract moral reasoning.
Yeah.
And so that's the God form for the Iron Age. You know, you did your best, buddy.
Mm.
You know, and so in a way, the whole thing was like a model of developmental spiritual psychology that they were going through on an experiential level. And it wasn't till I started, hokey as it might sound, experimenting with taking psychedelics and going to church that had a really thick liturgy, that I began to kind of see how that all fit together experientially. Because a lot of people misunderstand Gnosis as being like, oh, you have to know the key words. Oh, you guys think you know everything
Right.
better than us conventional Christians.
Right.
Which was one of the whole things with the validated
That's
Christians.
Gnostic.
But Gnosis, the proper interpretation isn't just like head knowledge.
Mm.
It's heart knowledge. It's
Oneness.
It's experiential knowledge. Like, I experienced this firsthand. I just don't know about it. I've experienced it.
Yeah.
And
so technically anybody who can't say that is an agnostic.
you know, in a manner of speaking,
Yeah.
a lot of people that consider themselves, you know,
Like they haven't had the realization of the oneness with the universe yet. They haven't
Right.
had the gnosis. So, I mean, you know.
and Valentinius was an interesting. He's kind of my hero because he was able to sort of straddle those two worlds.
Mm.
They're really funky, far out mystics, but at the same time, he could translate it enough to the conventional Christians that he almost became Pope.
Mm.
I mean, he was that close, and it makes me wonder what the church would have been like had he become the Pope.
Who is this?
Valentinius.
Oh, okay.
And he was one of the Gnostics that could kind of speak
Yeah.
the language to both groups of people.
Right.
And so he was a fantastic social leader in that regard.
Yeah.
And he had this ideal that there were different levels of Christians. That there were carnal Christians that were there for all the wrong reasons. They didn't get it at all.
Mm.
There were let me see, what was it? There were mental Christians they sort of understood some of it. Those would be like your evangelicals, maybe. You know, they kind of get a lot about the narrative, but yeah, they get a lot wrong too. And then the pneumatic Christians, they're the ones who had direct gnosis and experience. And he would often use the phrase about his more conventional counterparts that they're dry wells, that they have all the form but none of the spirit.
Yeah.
One of the interesting things I'm finding too, going back and reading the traditional Bible after reading the Gnostic text, is Paul was a blazing Gnostic. Like I always got hung up on, he has traditional views about
women should
and all
cover
this
their
stuff.
heads and men shouldn't.
Right.
Yeah.
But a lot of what he said, like you are living epistles written by God,
Right.
not with the letter of the law, but the letter of the Spirit. I mean,
We're one body with many members, and not all members have the same function.
Right.
The eye doesn't do what the heart does. The hand doesn't do what the ear does.
I mean, that's radical stuff, really.
Yeah.
He's like, you could do what you want with my epistles, sure,
Yeah.
give them a certain level of authority. Your life is an epistle. And that, in a way...
That's what Buddha said.
Yes!
Yeah, the Living Sutra. Jesus said it too, that the law, about the law written on the heart.
Yes.
And he was asking, what is the greatest commandment? And they said, to love the Lord thy God with all thy soul and all thy strength. And heart, soul, and strength. And to love thy neighbor as thyself. And no, he added that. And he said, let me add to that. So that's big. That's like, he did two things. He said, stop killing lambs and love thy neighbor as much as you love God. Because we're all God, get it? And they're all like, he's God, worship him or die. And they're like,
No,
that's not what I was saying at all. Like,
there is so much more truth to the life of Brian than people
yeah,
realize. Man.
yeah.
Holy
Well, they originally were going to call it the trials and tribulations of the life of Jesus Christ.
Oh, my
and
goodness.
then they were like, oh, they got too much flack for that, so they made it the life of Brian, the neighbor of Jesus.
There's way more truth in that movie.
Yeah.
But so I'm hoping ultimately, I would like to write a separate book, maybe a graphic novel, because I'm working with an old member of the lodge in Los Feliz. He was a kind of part of our neo-Aquarian group we had in Los Feliz before he moved over here. And he's a really gifted graphic novelist, Derek. He's been through some beautiful times of awakening and awareness with me, like some of my early Gnostic moments. He was there when my first child was born, which was the most unbelievably Gnostic moment I've ever experienced. I mean, talking about feeling a oneness with the loving Father,
Yeah.
that broke my head open more than any drug.
Yeah, I can imagine.
And that's ultimately, like, I don't want my book, even though it's called Psilocybin Sundays, I don't want people to think of it as a drug book, like, or they're
Right.
saying you have to do drugs in order to really find God.
Right.
No, that's a path that's worked for me.
Yeah.
Maybe Hunter S. Thompson
Yeah.
quote, but no, this is way bigger than that.
Yeah. For me, like, I had a parallel, kind of thing where I felt like pretty confident that I had a grip on the way things worked, and I would teach the classes. I would teach practicus class, teach theory. Any class you would needed me to teach, I'd teach it. I would teach it pretty straight. I could teach my point of view. This is how I do it. This is how they teach it. So if so-and-so's watching, do it this way. But honestly, if you ask me, you can do it this way. And then I took like a fucking heroic dose of mushrooms on 11/11/11, right?
Ooh.
And then
I always like asking people where they were.
all of that came crashing down. Like my sense of having any fucking grip on anything. I realized that my whole paradigm with the Golden Dawn and the tarot cards and the Tree of Life, that was why nowadays, like, I mean, and I kind of make a shitty teacher because I'm like, someone's like, yeah, the Tree of Life is the glyph of the universe according to the ancient Kabbalists. And I'm like, well, yeah, as interpreted by the Jesuits, in 1656, who
So when you say
decided it should be particularly like this.
When you say things came tumbling down, what do you mean?
Well,
That's interesting.
like my whole sense of like a pentagram being something, or like putting up a circle. Like what the fuck, like there's any difference between my brain and yours? Like I could ever possibly comprehend the complexity of the intricate organic thing happening all around me, and I'm just trying to look away from it towards something simple I can understand, like a square, and moving things around inside a square. And meanwhile, the actual fucking dragon is going on all around me and on my skin, and I'm too terrified to fucking look at it and experience it in present time, because then I'd be like having some kind of cosmic orgasm all the time.
It's
and
like
then
God,
I'd get
it's like
arrested.
God was saying, yeah, those symbols are cool, but I'm right here.
Right, yeah, exactly.
Boom.
And my ancestors were there. And I was like, every time I closed my eyes, I was looking at the eyes of all my ancestors. And the only way I could get away from them was to roll my eyes back out the top of this light up at the top of it all. It was like a honeycomb. And I had been inside that honeycomb before once, but it was like not good. Like it was screaming. It was when I was young. You know, I was like, I took a wrong turn somewhere. But like there I was again, and I was like, oh, it's all my ancestors. I'm inside my own DNA.
The honeycomb motif showed up for you a lot?
Yeah.
That's the honeycomb and the bee is an ancient Gnostic symbol.
Oh wow! When there was all the people, the DMT going around on the streets, and all the artists were painting what they were seeing. It was like walking around going, "Yep, been there." Yep,
Wow.
like it's just very clear that there's certain universals that we all get to when we're in certain states, you know. But like so I'd roll my eye, and I saw that too. I saw people depicting what I'm describing, you know, like where when you roll your eyes up and then you kind of get away from the eyeballs and the rainbow spectrum and you get up into the white light. But the problem was it was Janie's birthday, and she's like, "Hey, don't fall asleep. It's my birthday," you know. And so I'd be like, "Okay." So there I am looking at my ancestors again, right? And I'm in Joshua Tree, right? And I'm like seeing my ancestors camping in Joshua Tree, like my grandparents there when they were younger, and my grandpa's mom, Grace, was like frowning at everybody because she thought that my great aunt was dressed too scantily clad, and then she saw me on mushrooms in a fucking tent, like rolling my eyes around, and she was like, "Oh God, oh, it's just horrible. This is not how you camp, you know." And so then later,
Oh, but it is.
and then my dad was a heavy presence on like one half. Like you couldn't even see past his face to his ancestors. It's just him. And on my mom's side, it's all these ancestors.
I mean, just when you see his picture there, he
Right?
takes up a lot of headroom.
He does.
He has this energy that's
and
big.
they're all a little pretty weirded out by him on this side. So I'm having to reconcile all these tenuous threads and explain to my grandma that it's okay that I'm like getting into all this weird tantric shit
Every
and that it's all
mystical path
connected.
has some connection with ancestors.
Yeah. Oh, and of
It's-
course.
It's honoring.
Yeah.
It's honoring everything down here below us as we all spiral up this
Yeah.
huge
Well,
collective DNA
all of
coil.
it. Yeah, and it's how we're all connected.
Yeah.
And it's how you and I know the same language. It's how we know the same symbols. It's because we have the same ancestors, you know? Like you know?
One of my most interesting trips was I went with a professor friend of mine to All Saints Episcopal in Pasadena. A beautiful high church liturgy, but it's a very progressive liberal church at the same time, really socially active. And it's a very good, safe place. And like he had never done anything like this in a church. He had always gone out to the desert or to, Burning Man or to, Moon Tribe or something. He's like, "What, you want to do drugs at church?" And once he experienced it, he's like, "This is the perfect place to do drugs." I mean, by drugs, I'm not talking about the bad drugs. I'm talking about the good drugs. Psilocybin or marijuana.
And the good churches.
Grows from the earth.
Yeah.
And but
Speed and Scientology.
no, yeah, that problem.
Drugs in church. Drugs in church.
I could see meth and Scientology going together. There's a similar tweaker level thing.
They actually wouldn't let you do an auditing session if you were on meth. But yeah.
But anyway, so we take a pretty conservative dose, but as it turns out, enough to be highly visual.
Yeah.
And there was a moment in the Anglican, every Mass in the Anglican Church, I think in the Catholic as well, there's a part where an officiant, and it's always a female in the Anglican Church, stands up and reads the names of people who have died. And then there's this kind of silence.
These are people who died.
Yeah, to drop the James Carroll on us. But I had set my intention early on. I want to see angels. I want to know what angels are about. Because I grew up in a church that talked a lot about demons and being afraid of demons.
Right.
But what do angels do? Like, what? They're all throughout the Bible. What is the deal? When I closed my eyes while she was reading the thing, I began to see this undulating purple fabric that kind of went in a spiral, and these beautiful jewels that were embedded. And as I looked close to these jewels were interdimensional beings, And some of the interdimensional beings are people that have gone on, that are living in another dimension, or some of the interdimensional beings are probably, I don't know, unrecognizable
from somewhere else. Yeah.
But they wanted to engage me.
They came the other way.
But they wanted to engage me. They had this like, hey, you're here. Like, let's play the game that we play.
Oh, right.
And I knew this intuitively. You spin the wheel. You spin the wheel. And all of a sudden, I realized that there's a Gnostic magic square that says, it's called the Seder Rhodus. And it's written on the doorframe of a lot of like archaeological ruins of old churches, and Mithraic too. It's this weird thing that connects the Mithraic cults with the Gnostic Christians. But it's this weird word. It's like a weird anagram type thing. You spell backwards, sideways. You combine the letters on this like magic square, and it all says similar things that basically say the farmer or the worker does the work by turning the wheel. And it's similar to the Buddhist concept of the wheel as well. And I had this awareness. The rituals that we do in religion, they're the ones who gave them to us. You know, our ancestors, the other dimensional beings. And this is their way of playing with us. We do this, they meet with us.
That's true.
And we do this thing together. And we're present with them. And it just gave me such a wonderful, comforting feeling.
That was one thing I liked
really
about the Orthodox Church.
A
Was
lot
that
of my own
feeling.
issues of death. Like, I lost my fear of death after that service.
Wow.
It was a beautiful
Wow, how cool.
experience. Yeah.
Yeah, after I came down from that trip, I told Janie about it, you know, because I wasn't telling her about it while it was happening. I waited till I could articulate it. And then when I told her the part about grace, she appeared and she was like, I didn't know you could hear me. And I was like, oh, it's okay, Grace. I'm sorry. You know, and it was like our first interaction. Like I always
Grace?
felt, yeah, my mother's father's mother, the one that
goodness.
was in the trip. The one that was like frowning at everybody,
Oh, right,
you know,
right.
And she was embarrassed and she was apologizing, and so like, but that was the first time I didn't feel like this weird sort of estranged feeling about that particular ancestor, like because I look at my ancestors and I feel like I have a rapport with certain ones, but when I look at her, I'm like, I don't know if she'd like me, you know, because like she was the mother of my grandfather Edward, and he was kind of like this really upstanding citizen version of me, you know.
Wow.
And so like I felt like she would like, you know, really not, you know, if she produced him, then she probably would frown upon me, you know. I don't know, it was a weird sort of feeling. But then I realized she felt bad, like she had been called out for being judgy, and that she didn't know that I could hear her thinking.
Wow. So she experienced a level of transformation
She
too.
might have realized that I could hear her. It might have been a two-way thing, I don't know. Or I'm crazy. You know?
Can I just go ahead and bring us back to the synchronicity that happened before we came upstairs here?
What's that?
Gnosis and I were sitting on the front porch enjoying magic hour, sunset turning into dusk. And this beautiful overlook of Highland Park here on this beautiful house. And I saw what it looked like a helicopter, but the light was blinking off and on in a weird way, and I'm like, hey, look at that. What's the deal with that helicopter?
It was like a blinking orange glowing light
Right.
near the cloud line.
Right. And I was like, did it go into the cloud? What happened? All of a sudden it flashed, and this weird billowy ghosty thing began to float from the clouds over towards us. And then he was like, what the fuck? What is this thing?
Yeah, it was going directly towards us, and it was orange and glowing up high, and then there was a burst of orange, and then it went black. But I still saw it when it went out, as it was. And I could see this kind of like wavy shadow behind these lighter gray clouds, and it was just falling directly in our direction. And the amazing thing was that it
looked like it was going to come to the porch. It was just...
in real time, you could see it. I could see it getting a little bit closer and closer straight on, and it was kind of freaky how it wasn't, how it was actually visibly getting closer quick, not like what you said might have been a helicopter before. But then we soon realized it was a lot tinier than a helicopter.
Yeah, and it billowed, and it landed right behind my van down on the street.
Wow.
Like 50 feet down. And he's like, what is that? What happened? And I'm like, let's go see, you know, what do we have on our hands here? And when we went down there, you know, I'm trying to think rational. Okay, maybe some kid said a helium blew it up, or maybe it's a bag. And then, the weird part of me is like, oh my god, wouldn't it be cool if it's an alien? But so I get this, there's this big blobby thing that I don't quite recognize. And Liam's like, what is it? I'm like, I'm not sure, come take a look. Because it was just this weird kind of blobby thing. And I kick it, I'm like, okay, it's plastic, and it has this weird frame on it, and it's something I totally don't recognize. And I pick it up, and it looks almost like a deflated beach ball wrapped around a metal frame. And we took it up and looked at it in the porch light, and it was, what did you call this thing? A Chinese balloon?
It was like a Chinese lantern where they soak something in fuel in this frame of a balloon, or a little candle, and they light it, and then it just floats up.
And it said, "Rest in peace, Nana."
Yeah. Rest in peace, Nana. It was a memorial balloon about 3 feet diameter. That functions like a small hot air balloon.
Yeah.
It landed. It just kind of came to us, and it's interesting that that's what we encountered right before this discussion.
Yeah. Speaking of ghosts and ancestors, and
So it's
stuff.
kind of an interesting full circle, isn't it?
Yeah. I love that when Lon Melody Cat came on in his first episode, and he was talking about how he and his brother realized that they were their uncle, right? And they were their two uncles at one point when they were both on mushrooms.
Oh my goodness!
Yeah, but then
I can't wait to hear that.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's a good one. Check it out.
So we're spinning the wheel, Nana.
Yeah.
We are
it makes me
spinning the
think of
wheel.
the Tibetan wheel, the big wheel that they go by and turn the big wheel.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And turn the big wheel. But I mean, there's something to that because, like, some days you feel like you're being dragged along by the wheel. You're like, oh, the sun. Oh, not the snooze button.
The Buddhists talk a lot about that too. The wheel wasn't necessarily a pleasant thing always.
Right, but if you're the one, like the tribes that wake up before dawn and do the ceremony to call the sun to come up.
Yes.
And then the sun is up because I called it to come up. Like, as opposed to, oh, the sun is up. Oh, God. So it's like that's the difference between turning the wheel and being turned by the wheel, or being at cause, to use another Scientology term, or versus being at effect.
Mm-hmm. Carl Jung, he delved a lot in Gnosticism. He's written several books about alchemy, Paracelsus.
We were just talking about Carl
the
Jung.
Gnostics. His Red Book plays a lot into my own spiritual transformation and all the synchronicities that were around that, my discovery of that.
Yeah.
Wait, where were we just going with this?
Carl Jung and Gnosticism.
The way he looked at therapy is so much like the Gnostic way of thinking, that Jungian therapy is almost like a Gnostic initiation, because you're bringing integration to the shadow side, and it's this marriage, this union of opposites, the persona and the shadow side.
Yeah.
And you're listening to the deeper daemons that have caused you trouble, and the part of you that you want to shirk away from. You're saying, all right, I'm listening now. What are you trying to tell me? And letting them rest in peace after saying their message.
Now, for people who only know the word demon and only that from, like, horror movies,
right?
What's a daemon?
I had to come to peace with that too. In fact, when I started reading and studying about things that are considered quote unquote occult,
Right.
I had to purge myself of my own Pentecostal
Yeah.
fear of demons. Is that because people in the Pentecostal church believe that?
It's the Pentecostal pronunciation of demons?
Demons.
Oh, demons.
No, if you get too close to something that's been touched by a pagan, you might get demons. Look, don't go to that movie theater, you'll get demons. If you go to a secular rock concert, you'll get demons. It's like herpes. You might get a case of the demons.
When I was cast as Tartuffe in Tartuffe, are you familiar with that play?
No.
He's a he convinces a rich family that he's very spiritually pious, and he's a con man. And so my grandma was familiar with the play, and she said, that Tartuffe is a demon. And, if he's not careful, he could invoke and start to embody that demon. And my mom and I were like, oh, she's full of shit, but like, then later in life I was kind of like, God, I think I did invoke that guy,
there is something to malevolent forces.
Not to myself, but I mean, into my life.
I believe there are malevolent forces.
Yeah.
But there's this idea that in Gnosticism that the daemon is kind of like a neutral spiritual entity. That can be a demon.
Oh, I see.
But you can, like when you read about Jesus doing exorcisms, he always asks the demon what the name is. He says, "What's your name?" Basically, who are you? What are you about? And no, and there's other stories in other Gnostic texts too, where it's not necessarily that type of dramatic thing.
They put them into the pigs, right?
In a way, it's almost like you're ferreting out the function of the demon. Like, why are you here? What are you doing? What's your name?
Yeah.
And it's almost the way that a therapist can label something. Oh, this is depression. This is anxiety. Oh, this is what you call this thing. And the person that's been struggling with all this internal chaos has a label for it now. They're like, oh, that's what that is. I have this. And so they can start to manage it. Once you give something a name, you can manage it a little bit.
Yeah.
So naming the demon, but also seeing what its primary function is. Like Jesus would often ask, why are you doing this? Why are you here? In the same way that a therapist will look at a person's bad habit or their struggle with depression or anxiety and say, what is the primary function of this? How is this serving you? And a lot of times the very thing that people complain about their lives, the pathologies that they struggle with, they serve a function. That function might be
Protecting,
causing people to feel sorry for them or
right.
protecting from them.
Yeah.
Maybe they go around with the chip on their shoulder because nobody's ever going to abuse me again because I'm going
Right.
to walk around like this complete badass. And that's their way of interacting with the world. And so therapeutically you say, hey, that's the badass. What's that doing for you? How's that serving you?
Right.
You know, you can let that go. You don't have to be ruled by it. And then the Jungian quote, which I think is profoundly Gnostic, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate.
Huh!
And it's interesting, some of the ascension rituals involved calling out the different demiurges or god forms of the different celestial realms. And it had a lot to do with fate, like these things, the planetary forces, the elemental spirits, they're going to control my life.
It's interesting.
But once you call them out, they no longer control you because you see them for what they are.
Yeah, that's interesting. I was just thinking about, like, if somebody, who wasn't aware of their total self, they only had, like, some small amount of self, and like that, they feel like they're at the mercy of these forces, and they don't know what they are. But you and I know there are probably forces within them, maybe
Right.
from their childhood and from society and programs running in the background. So if such a person were to say, read a comic book or whatever, and then join a spiritual path and say, I'm gonna join this spiritual path, become a spiritual master like a Jedi. I'm gonna get through all the grades, and when I get to the top, I'm gonna have knowledge and conversation with my holy guardian angel, who will give me my true name and tell me something great, and I'll be the master of the universe, and that he's going to tell me that I'm destined to be king of the whole eastern half of the United States, and you can have the western half, BT. And I've been hitting the cough syrup again.
There's a lot of being stuck in the third chakra that was
Right.
in your cult.
Yeah,
There's
yeah.
so many of the people you described.
Yeah.
They're so about power.
Right.
Like they
But-
never move into the heart.
And they won't get to the point where, like, if you talk about compassion or self-sacrifice or something like that, they're like, no, I philosophically disagree with that, and frankly, I think it's because you're a liberal. You know what I mean?
Oh my God.
Or something like that. And so, it gets weird. And but so in other words, in order to find the higher will, you have to be open to the fact that it might not be what you're insisting it's fucking gonna be. You know what I mean?
Amen.
Like,
Yeah.
my higher self surely wants me to screw that hot blonde over there, so I'm gonna contact my higher self, push the Ouija board, fucking pointer over to yes, and then go introduce myself.
You know what?
Like
for any listeners who
for
are
God.
thinking, for any listeners who are thinking that's just a bunch of occult bullshit,
yeah,
that happened with totally different language, but the exact same thing in the Bible college where I would go, where a guy would go up to a girl,
Holy
or a girl
Spirit-
would go up to a
the
guy
Holy Spirit
and
told
say, you know
me,
what, I think the Lord wants us to start a ministry together. I think the Lord wants us to be, I think we need to pray about it. Maybe we should have a time of intimate worship back in the dorm room. The swish, swish, swish of corduroy dry humping.
God.
In Bible college, there was a saying: if it's not penetration, it's not fornication.
Oh, good time.
Oh, we took a deviant turn there.
No, it's but anyway, no. But okay. So these days, if someone says I'm a Gnostic, they say, "Oh, so you're in the OTO," because the in 1970 or 71, when Grady McMurdy and them decided to bring back the OTO, the Ordo Templi Orientis, famous, popularized around here by Jack Parsons, and
He used the powers of hell
he
to start
founded
the
he founded the Ecclesia
space
Gnostica
exploration.
Catholica, the EGC, the Ecclesia Gnostica Catholica specifically, in order that it be a church that can sponsor into existence an order, that order being the Ordo Templi Orientis. And so, at least around Hollywood, and they got, I believe, the church, if it's the same one, I don't know if it's the same one. Is there more than one Gnostic church in Hollywood? Because they ended up on the cover of the LA Weekly.
Well, Ecclesia Gnostica is not OTO. It's from France. It's like they link themselves to the Catholics.
There must be more than one then, because
Yeah.
the Ecclesia Gnostica Catholica is most definitely the OTO.
But just the Ecclesia Gnostica.
Oh.
The one in town is ran by a Jungian analyst and a Carl Jung scholar.
Okay.
Shit, what is his name? He's from Switzerland.
Right.
Brilliant guy. He's really old now, and frankly, their liturgy is super boring.
No.
Like I went with a professor after doing the Anglican thing. He's like, I think I like the Anglican thing better.
It seems silly to me to do a Catholic mass version of Gnosticism. I mean, that's what they do in the OTO, but I mean, but they do it from a different angle.
Let me say something about the OTO and Crowley.
Right.
A lot of people give him a bad rap, and if you take his things wrong, yeah, you could end up in some dark places.
Yeah.
But there is a historical precedence for the stuff he taught. Basilides was one of the main leaders of a whole subsect of Gnostic experience that was very tantric.
Mm-hmm.
They used sex magic. They saw the bride and the bridegroom, the bridal chamber, as being a literal sex initiation.
Right.
It wasn't necessarily a orgy pornographic type thing,
Right.
but it was a very reverent use of the most mind-bending, consciousness-expanding experience we have as human beings.
Mm.
This is from God. You know, how do we use this as an act of worship?
What period was he?
It was within the 2nd century.
Okay.
It was within the 2nd century. He was before Valentinius.
Mm.
But they used sex magic. There was also a sect of the followers of Basilides that did get kind of dark. They believed in reincarnation, and they're like, if you don't have the urge to do these evil things, it means you already did it in previous life, so you don't have to do it anymore.
Oh.
And so, yeah, there were definitely people within that took license to do certain grotesque things.
Mm.
Because in any religious movement, there's going to be deviant people that glom onto it and twist it.
Mm.
But I think the most pure form of Basilidian thought, and Crowleyan thought actually too, is a way of confronting your anxieties. Like, God, what am I capable of? Am I capable of doing some atrocious thing to some child or it's kind of the feeling you get if you're standing by the Grand Canyon with someone. You're like, their life is in my hands. I could push them off.
Right.
And all of a sudden, look at that feeling of panic. God, I'm a sociopath because I had that thought.
Right.
But every human being, and there's a whole form of obsessive compulsive disorder that's related to, it's almost like
unwanted
Tourette's.
thought
What's the
syndrome?
worst thing that I can think of right now?
Right.
And in a way, confronting that is a type of exposure therapy.
Mm.
So you're not acting it out literally, but you're kind of confronting it on the astral plane, as it were.
Mm.
And so some of the Crowley work can really be done therapeutically, or it can be done to turn you into a total narcissistic asshole,
Right.
as happens to some of the Crowley people.
Yeah.
And ironically enough, a lot of what we know about Basilides and some of the early Gnostic initiatory rituals,
Yeah.
they were a lot of it was preserved by the people who were creating polemics against the heretics.
Mm.
Irenaeus from Lyons, France, oddly enough.
Mm.
And he was responding to the Gnostics that became the Cathars.
Mm.
Tertullian, these were the heroes of the faith, making the pronouncements against the Gnostics. Do you know what they believe? Do you know what they do?
Mm.
And actually, thanks, guys.
Oh,
Centuries
I see.
later, we know what the initiation rites were. And we know what text they were using. And now that we found the knock-on body text, yep, you were right about some of that. Some of it you were totally pulling that out of proportion.
Right. Interesting.
Thank you, Gnosis. And thank you, Silence. And thank you to the Silent Gnosis for being our guest today on the Esoterinerd podcast. Special thanks to Susumu Ueda and his father and the other monks at Jofukuin on Mount Koyasan for the music you're hearing right now. Special thanks to Israeli Sesame Street and Jonathan Goldman for the musical accompaniment to the segment Aleph Betvet Gimel Dalet Hey. Special thanks to Paul Foster Case and to the builders of the Addendum. And most importantly, thank you to you, the Esoterinerd, listening to this podcast. I thought it would be appropriate to close today's episode with a recital of a Gnostic scripture.
The thunder, perfect mind. I was sent forth from the power, and I have come to those who reflect upon me. And I have been found among those who seek after me. Look upon me, you who reflect upon me, and you hearers, hear me. You who are waiting for me, take me to yourselves, and do not banish me from your sight. And do not make your voice hate me, nor your hearing. Do not be ignorant of me, anywhere or any time. Be on your guard. Do not be ignorant of me. For I am the first and the last. I am the honored one and the scorned one. I am the whore and the holy one. I am the wife and the virgin. I am the mother and the daughter. I am the members of my mother. I am the barren one, and many are her sons. I am she whose wedding is great, and I have not taken a husband. I am the midwife, and she who does not bear. I am the solace of my labor pains. I am the bride and the bridegroom, and it is my husband who begot me. I am the mother of my father, and the sister of my husband, and he is my offspring. I am the slave of him who prepared me. I am the ruler of my offspring. But he is the one who begot me before the time on a birthday, and he is my offspring in due time, and my power is from him. I am the staff of his power in his youth, and he is the rod of my old age. And whatever he wills happens to me. I am the silence that is incomprehensible, and the idea whose remembrance is frequent. I am the voice whose sound is manifold, and the word whose appearance is multiple. I am the utterance of my name. Why, you who hate me, do you love me, and hate those who love me? You who deny me, confess me, and you who confess me, deny me. You who tell the truth about me, lie about me, and you who have lied about me, tell the truth about me. You who know me, be ignorant of me, and those who have not known me, let them know me. For I am knowledge and ignorance. I am shame and boldness. I am shameless. I am ashamed. I am strength and I am fear. I am war and peace. Give heed to me. I am the one who is disgraced and the great one. Give heed to my poverty and my wealth. Do not be arrogant to me when I am cast out upon the earth, and you will find me in those that are to come. And do not look upon me on the dung heap, nor go and leave me cast out, and you will find me in the kingdoms. And do not look upon me when I am cast out among those who are disgraced, and in the least places, nor laugh at me. And do not cast me out among those who are slain in violence. But I am compassionate and I am cruel. Be on your guard. Do not hate my obedience, and do not love my self-control. In my weakness, do not forsake me, and do not be afraid of my power. For why do you despise my fear and curse my pride? But I am she who exists in all fears, and strength in trembling. I am she who is weak, and I am well in a pleasant place. I am senseless, and I am wise. Why have you hated me in your counsels? For I shall be silent among those who are silent, and I shall appear and speak. But then have you hated me, you Greeks, because I am a barbarian among barbarians? For I am the wisdom of the Greeks, and the knowledge of the barbarians. I am the judgment of the Greeks and the barbarians. I am the one whose image is great in Egypt, and the one who has no image among the barbarians. I am the one who has been hated everywhere, and who has been loved everywhere. I am the one who they call life, and you have called death. I am the one who they call law, and you have called lawlessness. I am the one whom you have pursued, and I am the one whom you have seized. I am the one whom you have scattered, and you have gathered me together. I am the one before whom you have been ashamed, and you have been shameless to me. I am she who does not keep festival, and I am she whose festivals are many. I am godless, and I am the one whose God is great. I am the one whom you have reflected upon, and you have scorned me. I am unlearned, and they learn from me. I am the one that you have despised, and you reflect upon me. I am the one whom you have hidden from, and you appear to me. But whenever you hide yourselves, I myself will appear. For whenever you appear, I myself will hide from you. Those who have to it senselessly take me understanding from grief. That part, nobody knows what it really says there. I guess it was ripped or something. And take me to yourselves from understanding and grief, and take me to yourselves from places that are ugly and in ruin, and rob from those which are good, even though in ugliness. Out of shame take me to yourselves shamelessly, and out of shamelessness and shame upbraid my members in yourselves, and come forward to me, you who know me, and you who know my members, and establish the great ones among the small first creatures. Come forward to childhood, and do not despise it, because it is small and it is little. And do not turn away greatnesses in some parts from the smallnesses, for the smallnesses are known from the greatnesses. Why do you curse me and honor me? You have wounded and you have had mercy. Do not separate me from the first ones whom you have known, and do not cast anyone out, nor turn anyone away. Turn away and know him not. What is mine? Again, these parts are a little sketchy. I know the first ones, and those after them know me, but I am the mind of, and the rest of. I am the knowledge of my inquiry, and finding of those who seek after me, and the command of those who ask me, and the power of the powers in my knowledge of the angels, who have been sent at my word, and of gods and their seasons by my counsel, and of spirits of every man who exists with me, and of women who dwell within me. I am the one who is honored, and who is praised, and who is despised scornfully. I am peace, and war has come because of me. I am an alien and a citizen. I am the substance, and the one who has no substance. Those who are without association with me are ignorant of me, and those who are in my substance are the ones who know me. Those who are close to me have been ignorant of me, and those who are far away from me are the ones who have known me. On the day when I am close to you, you are far away from me. And on the day when I am far away from you, I am close to you. I am within. I am of the natures. I am of the creation spirits. I request of the souls. I am control and uncontrollable. I am the union and the dissolution. I am the abiding and I am the dissolution. I am the one and they come up to me. I am the judgmental and the acquittal. I am sinless and the root of sin derives from me. I am lust in outward appearance, and interior self-control exists within me. I am the hearing which is attainable to everyone, and the speech which cannot be grasped. I am a mute who does not speak, and great is my multitude of words. Hear me in gentleness, and learn of me in roughness. I am she who cries out, and I am cast forth upon the face of the earth. I prepared the bread, and my mind within. I am the knowledge of my name. I am the one who cries out, and I listen. I appear and walk in seal of, I am the defense, I am the one who is called truth and iniquity. You honor me and you whisper against me. You who are vanquished, judge them before they give judgment against you, because the judge and partiality exist in you. If you are condemned by this one, who will acquit you? Or if you are acquitted by him, who will be able to detain you? For what is inside of you is what is outside of you. And the one who fashions you on the outside is the one who shaped the inside of you. And what you see outside of you, you see inside of you. It is visible, and it is your garment. Hear me, you hearers, and learn of my words, you who know me. I am the hearing that is attainable to everything. I am the speech that cannot be grasped. I am the name of the sound, and the sound of the name. I am the sign of the letter, and the designation of the division. And I, 3 lines missing, something about light, hears to you the great power, and will not move the name, and the one who created me, and I will speak his name. Look then at his words, and all the writings which have been completed. Give heed then, you hearers, and you also, the angels, and those who have been sent, and you spirits who have arisen from the dead. For I am the one who alone exists, and I have no one who will judge me. For many are the pleasant forms which exist in numerous sins, and inconsistencies, and disgraceful passions, and fleeting pleasures, which men embrace until they become sober, and go up to their resting place. And they will find me there, and they will live, and they will not die again.